Welcome to another episode of Theological Thursday. My name is Nicole, and it is an honor to serve you on this evening. Last week we talked about strange fire, idolatry, and how that showed up in the life of Job. Tonight, I want to share my personal experience of strange fire, and I hope that you can take from it what it looks like in real life situations. 13 years ago, I was at my cousin's house, and we had come in from a night out, and as we pulled up to her house, there was a man that was waiting for her. Nothing seemed to be off about the situation as they interacted with one another. However, everything in me was just going off, every alarm system in me. Nothing was settled in me. There was so much turmoil in my gut, and there were alarms that I didn't even know I had that were just shouting. And I watched my cousin interact with this person, but there didn't seem to be nothing off. Make a long story short, he went outside of the house and smoked a cigarette, and he was waiting for his ride to leave, to go home. My cousin laid on the floor, and I was sitting on the couch, but in clear vision of the front door. A horn sound, and as the horn sound, the man walked in. As he crossed the threshold, he pulled out a gun, he cocked it, and he walked up to my cousin and said, "If you ain't gonna be with me, you ain't gonna be with nobody." And he shot her 3 times in the head. He turned and he pointed the gun at me, and I threw my hands up, and I looked just above his head, and I screamed with everything in me, mind, body, and soul, "Jesus, have mercy on me." And he fired. "Jesus, have mercy on me." And he fired. "Jesus, have mercy on me." And he fired. And we went back and forth like that until the gun clicked. He ran out of the house, and I was still there, sitting on the couch, looking just above where he once stood, screaming, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." Slowly, my arms came down. I went to look down, but I caught myself and I said, "Don't look, because if you see it, you'll panic." And so I went to reach for my phone with my left arm, but my left arm didn't move. And so I pushed myself over on the couch. I heard Yahuwah speak to me, and he said, "Don't forget the promises that I have given you." And so that told me that I wasn't going to die. I pulled myself across the couch, and I grabbed my phone, and just before I made the call, I prayed for the young man who just attempted to take my life. I asked God to forgive him because he didn't know the extent of what he had done. And in that moment, I heard Yahuwah speak, and he said, "I will give you a dance." I didn't know what he meant. I honestly thought that he was not looking at the scene of the crime, because what I needed in that moment, what seemed most pertinent, was an ambulance. But I never forgot what he told me. And so I called the police, and I realized I didn't know the address to where I was, and so I ended up having to navigate them via landmarks to my cousin's house. When the police came, one cop walked in, and another cop walked in and walked out, and it seemed as though he vomited outside the apartment. It was evident to me in that moment that the scene of the crime was gruesome. It didn't look good. I asked where the ambulance was, and he said not far behind, and soon 2 ambulance men walked in. I asked them to get my cousin first, but they persisted and told me that they would take me. I didn't realize that she was dead at the time. I went to the hospital in Niagara Falls, and they mercy flighted me from there to a hospital in Buffalo. When I came to, I had surgery that had been done, an exploratory surgery to remove bullets. I found that I was shot in my neck, my torso, and my left leg. The bullet that went into my torso bounced around and lodged on the right side of my spine, and I was told that I would not walk again. And then the message that God spoke to me that night on the couch became clear. However, I was mortified at the idea of living life without the use of my legs. I didn't know what that looked like, what that entailed. All my life, I've been an athlete. I mean, every day I ran 2 to 3.5 miles every day. 5 times a week, I played basketball, and now those things were a memory. Something that I used to do, and something if I attempted to do currently, I'd be forced to do it differently. No longer would I be able to finesse the artistry of skill on the basketball court, or run until my body burned and push myself to the limit. I had to figure out how to do things differently. And so I began to seek God. I believed that my relationship with him was, well, distant, to say the least. And so I thought, in order to receive the promise of what he had spoken to me, I had to become in alignment with him. The issue with my alignment is that it was not contingent on loving him with all of my heart, soul, and mind. My worship was my works. I threw myself into college, and I excelled in philosophy and world religions and biblical studies. I got degrees in all of those things and psychology. I learned how to speak biblical Hebrew and how to read it and be able to interpret the text differently. I began to teach at my church that I attended and influence the youth. I began to volunteer and mentor, and that was my worship. But my worship was based on fear. My worship was based on my feeble state and the notion that I wanted something from God. It was not simply because of who he was. I didn't love him with all of my heart, soul, and mind. In fact, if I wasn't in that situation, I cannot honestly say that I would have pursued him at all, that I would sought to know him or understand his word or any of those things. My worship was strange fire.